And Michael, we don't know where he's at. So let's start. I'll call the meeting to order. Can get a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
All right. Any changes, alterations? I see Councillor Stenhouse with a finger up and a hand up.
Okay, so the one issue I have is with, it has to do with 10.1, 10.2, all those bylaws on the agenda. And what I'm referring to is an email that was sent out on March 25th, and then it was resent May 5th from the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. And we had mentioned this in one of our meetings just not that long ago on COVID. And let me just read this to you.
But just a sec, Judy, before you read, is there an issue with this as an agenda item?
Yes.
Or can we not speak on this when we get to that agenda item?
Well, it says in the email, it says, we strongly urge all mayors and councils across Alberta to take the following actions. And number 3 is, do not introduce any new bylaws or regulations other than those needed to address COVID-19.
Yeah, let's talk about that once we get to that agenda item. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't have to accept the bylaw. We can vote it down. Okay, any other possible changes, alterations? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda? All right, that motion passes. Brian, do we have any public delegations?
None.
None? All right. We'll move on then to our fire chief's report. Can I get a motion on that? Councillor Stenhouse?
The council received the fire chief's April 2020 report for information.
Okay, thank you. We'll turn it over to our fire chief and see if there's anything he wants to draw our attention to.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, I guess I'll just kind of highlight a couple of things that that I have on the report there. Had a meeting with West Fraser, Lee Barton, and a whole bunch of the I guess managers there, and I felt that it went really well. Basically, we're kind of being a little progressive and proactive in setting up, I guess, pre-plan as far as water supply and suppression activities if the summer comes along and it becomes very dry. So we were kind of coordinating hose setups, connections, water supply, water placement, sort of preliminary things. Had a discussion, it was almost 2 hours, I would say, and came away really well. Working relationship with West Fraser also. We've been doing some hazard reduction burns on the mill site or around the mill site to again eliminate any threats to the business and to I guess you consider it a large employer of the town. So that got happened. Right now we've got contractors in at the fire hall, and they're working on the floor to I guess eliminate the problem of salt erosion on the floor. So setting up some concrete berms, put in a sump pit at the fire hall there. So hopefully it'll take care of issues that we're having at the fire hall. Because right now, when the CPO's vehicles come in wintertime, all the salt and grime and whatnot drips off in the floor, and that floor was not really sloped in any way, shape, or form to handle that kind of situation. So that's basically what we're doing right now inside of there. Ladies have been taking a lot of inquiries about fire pits in town, and I've been out bopping around, just having a look at people's fire pits, making sure that they are safe. And for majority of people, they are following the guidelines for having fire pits in there. There's a couple that I will have to come back to, but outside of that, people are basically getting things set up properly. That's a good thing. And last discussion, there was, I had not received any PPE from the provincial operation centers. I do have that now. And it seemed there was a little bit of political pressure placed on by people, and they actually started to make things happen. So I did get that received. Outside of that, you can see on our calls, we've got a lot of monitored alarms, I guess, in town. That's still an ongoing issue. I don't know if there's any solution. I think maybe next newsletter, I'm going to try and throw it out there that, you know, people be aware that we have a very high call volume for monitored alarms, but a majority of our calls in town were monitored alarms. And as usual, we start to get like grass fires and wildland fires up in the county. So we're spending a little bit more time doing those kinds of things out in the county. Do I want to talk about my thing? Because it's an item later on, right? Okay, I'll just talk in regards to what a request that I had. I've been, as you know, are aware, I've been getting my safety codes level B1, which allows me to effectively meet the town's QMP. And in that course, I'm basically assigned a mentor. And one topic that came up was how they managed to get places to are encouraged to comply to fire code and fire code issues. And I know in the past I've sat and talked with Ken, and it has always been an ongoing issue of trying to encourage companies or businesses primarily to think about fire safety and to comply with fire code. To go through the safety codes process is a very laborious process. It takes hours and hours and hours of work. You start involving lawyers. You have to go to Court of Queen's Bench, all of this kind of stuff. And the way that St. Albert does it is in our bylaws, we already have a fee for inspection, but they go just one step further, and that is that if there are repeat inspections that have to occur because of non-compliance, they reassess a fee based on the number of times that they have to come back to solve the issues, I guess, basically. So I looked at that and I thought that was a way that St. Albert does it, and I thought maybe that might be a way that we can implement here. Ultimately, I guess it's your guys' decision, but instead of having to spend hours and hours, like I said, going through the safety codes process, each time, like there are, I don't know if you've looked at it, but the first 2 inspections are free. There is no penalty for it. The third one, then you start charging them, and then the 4th one after that. So basically they will have roughly about 4 months to get things in line before they start getting hit harder and harder for non-compliance of very important safety issues. So for example, if a company or business, a hotel, doesn't have an alarm system operating, sometimes they'll drag their feet on this, and that's I think a very important safety mechanism to have in place for the safety of the people. That's part of the town QMP, and that's part of the safety codes inspection. So that's sort of where that's coming from and why I'm suggesting we consider it or look at it. So,
What's a QMP?
quality management plan, that's part of what the town has to provide for safety codes compliance.
And do we have one of those?
Yes.
Okay.
So for
And
example,
who does the QMP? Where is it stored? Because I don't believe we've seen that before.
it's stored in the vault, but the QMP basically is the guiding principle for for building permits, storage of fuel containers, and again, fire safety code compliance.
Okay, I'm just curious why it's not more public than it is. If it is dealing with all of those things, how do people know about it if, as council, we don't even know about it?
That's something that that I will have to work on. Like this year is not intended to be a punishment. It's meant to be a working relationship between trying to make sure that the businesses are safe for the people that are going in there, staying in there. So, for example, if a hotel locks or chains off a door, that's a severe violation of the safety code. So that's all sort of encompassed in that picture.
Okay, no, we've got, that is, like you'd mentioned, it is an agenda item coming up, but
Yeah.
I'll throw it open if anybody else has any questions or comments for our fire chief. Oh, I don't see any hands going up. So while they're doing that, I do have a couple of questions, or actually a couple of comments. One is it's great to see out there doing those prescribed burns around town. That's good. Cleaning up the town and getting rid of that fire hazard. That's good to see. And also wanted to relay a positive message from one of the residents of the county that you stopped at their house. They said that when the flooding was coming around, you stopped in there, gave them some good directions on what to do if the water level came up, who to call. They said that even though they were in the county and not in the town, you stopped there, and the county trucks never stopped there. So they were quite happy to have somebody stop and talk to them as opposed to just driving by their house. And you gave them some good ideas on what to do. So good job.
Thank you. As far as the prescribed burns in town, I know in past that people have commented it would be nice to know that we are doing this, so when there's smoke in town. We've been trying to put it out on social media, on Facebook, and informing people that we are doing prescribed burns, and we make a point of making sure that if we are burning, that by the end of the evening everything's out, so the town's not having to be in smoke for 2 or 3 days. Basically, it's just an evening for a couple hours, and then it's done.
All right, Councillor Rose.
Did we end up doing an announcement somehow, like whether we did it on our website or social media? Messages sent to me and phone calls about residents asking about whether they're allowed to have a fire pit. Discussion groups, just sort of what the answer to. And I think we've even had peace officers.
You're breaking up big time.
Chimed
Yeah.
in, so it seems to be a question that comes up. I think the internet is an issue tonight.
Where are you
Can you hear
at?
me now?
Yeah, it's coming better now. Can you
Oh,
repeat?
Down the street.
Can you repeat what you asked? Because I totally lost.
Just about whether you feel like we should have more of an announcement about fire pits and stuff. I get lots of questions about whether we can or we can't, like whether we can somehow inform people that they are allowed in town and what the process is.
I did have that on
No, not-
Facebook. I put that on both the town discussion. I also have it on Alberta fire bans. I didn't put it in the newsletter, but I've got it out as much sort of social media. I don't know if you have a suggestion of where else that I could put it.
So did you say it was on the town's website?
It's not on the town website. I put it on the High Prairie discussion page, the fire department page, and I also the information as far as what fire bans are. There's on Alberta fire bans, but the permit process and all the information is on the town website as well. So if you go onto the town website, there's a link to the fire pit permit and the application, and it has all of the rules and regulations that are on there as well. So it's a matter, I guess, of people having to find it, I guess, ultimately.
Okay.
Yeah,
thanks.
one of the
Can
things.
you guys hear me better? Brian, can you guys hear me better now?
A little bit better now. Yeah, you didn't break up.
I've moved to the windowsill. I'm thinking if I can point my computer down your street, you seem to get better reception your way.
Yeah, it seems to be better. You're not breaking up, and you're not locking up. Before, your video was locking up, and we couldn't. You were talking, but you weren't moving.
Okay. Maybe
But,
we need better broadband in town.
Yeah, if you go to the website and it talks about fire pits right on the homepage, but when you click on it, it talks about becoming a volunteer member. It doesn't really talk about fire pits and what you need to do to have them. It's one of those things on our website that needs to be updated and fixed. And I know that I've sent that in before, but you may want to just follow up with administration, see if we can get that part of it fixed up.
Because I think I actually went on the town website, and there was a link, and it did bring me to the permit. So I don't.
Well, yeah, you can download the permit there, but it doesn't talk about what you need to get a permit, or when you need a permit, or why you need a permit. And it talks about the fire department and becoming a fire member. So either we change the title on the home page, or we should alter the, what you get when you first pop onto that page.
Okay, I'll have a look at that and see what's going on with it.
Yeah, it's good information talking about if you want to become a firefighter, but it's not, you wouldn't click there thinking that that's what you're going to find. There is a link to the fire permit though.
Okay.
Any other questions for our fire chief? All right, I don't see any, so thank you for coming in your report.
Thank you.
We have a motion to receive his report for information. All those in favor? All right, that motion passes. We'll move on then to 5.1, the minutes of our special meeting. Can I get a motion on that? Okay, Councillor Danaka.
I make a motion that council approve the minutes from the April 23rd, 2020 special meeting of council as presented.
You are coming in really loud when you do that. That's good. Thank you. All right. Any changes, alterations required of the minutes? I don't see any. No questions? All right, we'll go right to the vote. All those in favor of adopting the minutes? Okay, that motion passes. Moving on to our next set of minutes, it's the regular meeting minutes from April 28th. Can I get a motion on that one? Nobody's moving. Oh, there we go. Councillor Danaka again.
The council approved the minutes from the April 28th, 2020 regular meeting of council as presented.
Thank you. Any changes needed for our regular meeting of council? Okay. I don't see any. Okay, all those in favor of adopting them? Perfect. All right, that passes also. And we had one more set of minutes from our May 5th meeting. Can I get a motion for that one? Somebody different, preferably. Oh, thanks, Councillor Courtley.
Council approved minute from the 2020 special meeting council as presented.
Thank you. Any comments on these minutes? Any changes needed? Okay, I don't see any. So we'll vote to adopt those minutes. And Councillor Stenhouse. Oh, okay, perfect. All right, that motion passes also. Moving on to item 8.1, an ad hoc hiring committee. Any motions for that? I'll make a motion that council approves the establishment of an ad hoc hiring committee with the following two members. Well, I'll just put in some names just for the sake of argument. Brian Panasic and Councillor Danaka.
I'm assuming they're going to meet during the day, so that pretty much removes me from anything, unless they meet in the evening.
Okay, I just threw it out there. Yeah, I mean, we can alter that. I don't know when this would meet. It's something that we could set up and go with. I'll speak on this just a little bit, just to make everybody sort of up to date. As you know, we need to get going on hiring a new CAO. I just thought we needed to have some people do sort of the legwork, the work to make sure that we're on time, we're getting it, you know, we come up with some questions to ask at the interviews, that kind of thing. Everybody, our council's got to approve all of these things, but it's much easier to approve and look at some questions that have already been developed and tweak those questions as needed versus starting from scratch. So the idea was for somebody to, you know, or a couple of people to start with those guidelines, make sure that we're sticking to our timelines and following through. So that ad hoc committee would be responsible for following that process through. So that was the intent of it. Doesn't really matter when it meets, because a lot of this will be, it could be meet day or evening. It's only two people getting together, or two or three, to come up with those things, bring forth some recommendations to council. All right, Councillor Gilroy?
Your description, I would assume that you're saying that it would be our HR person along with the 2 people, or is there someone other than that when you say administration?
To
It says
do-
a hiring committee along with administration will take on the role of
Yeah.
headhunter. Would that be our HR and 2 people?
It could be. Yeah, I could see working with the HR or Brian or whoever from administration Brian assigns to work to get through some of that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. I would have suggested the mayor and 2 councillors, because automatically you should be on there as mayor. But that would be my suggestion, the mayor and 2 councillors.
Like I say, I just wanted to get something started here. Other comments? Okay, I don't see anything. Councillor Rose?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So is it possible? I mean, I agree that I don't know how big of a committee it has to be just to kind of get things going. But if there's other council that have questions or suggestions for questions for, say, the interview process, could that be sort of an opportunity for others to make them via email, so that can be added even if you're not necessarily adding members to the committee, but they could still just give you some feedback?
Absolutely, and I think council can also have, we'd have to look at those as a council and make sure we approve everything also, so people would, have a chance for input there. It's not to limit any input, so yeah, if people have ideas and suggestions, absolutely bring them forward, and then it would come to council one more time for some input. Go ahead, Brian.
What I was looking at is possibly a 3-person on this panel, 3 council. And that way you could possibly, with the knowledge you guys have, to shortlist the applications and bring back to council, which would basically speed up the process.
Okay.
I don't know if you had a thought on that to shortlist it or not, but or you leave that up to all the council, but.
Yeah, that is on the list, is get the first cut at it and say, here's why. But I think for hiring purposes, the first thing that as council we would need to do before we come up with the criteria to shortlist is make sure all of council agrees on what do we want as criteria for shortlisting. What's important in this hiring process? What kind of skills and abilities do we want to see this person come with? Okay, well, I saw one hand up and then go down, and then, so Councillor Courtney.
Just a question on applications. Have we had quite a few apply?
Yes, there has been.
A good turnout of applications? Good.
Yeah.
Good. Like lots?
Quite a few.
Okay. Well, good.
They're basically coming in daily now.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yep.
wow. Good.
When does the competition close, Brian? Because we don't even know that for sure.
And I'm not for sure on the date. I think we still have a bit of time yet.
Okay, what's the actual date we want to have somebody locked down?
See, that's part of the thing that you need to sort of back everything up, because we probably want to have about, let's say, a month of overlap or 2 to 3 weeks of overlap with the existing CAO before he leaves. So that takes us back to, let's just, for the sake of argument, to the end of July. Usually, if you're hiring somebody, you might want to make sure that they may have to give notice as to where they're currently employed, and that can be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. So that's another 2 months back from that. So that takes us to the end of May, right? Like it's that kind of time frames. We're getting to that point now.
That's where I was going with this. We don't have a lot of time.
No, I know, and
Having
that's
multiple meetings. We should be hammering on this right now.
and that's why I wanted to make sure we got moving on it. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other comments? We've had a couple say that we want to have 3. Councillor Danaka, go ahead.
With this timeline that we're looking at, like we should really start getting together as a council and doing those criterias that you had mentioned about what it is that we're looking for, so we can get that defined, and then moving forward saying, okay, this is what we're looking for. This is the criteria out of these 10 applications. 5 of them meet the criteria that we've set down. So I think we need to get started on, as a council, having a meeting and figuring out what that is.
Yes, agreed.
And I'm not really sure, like, I think we know what we want in a CAO, but do we really know what we're looking for in terms of qualifications? I mean, that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's what council has to decide. What's important with the new CAO? What do we want to see this person come with? And we need to decide that, because that'll help us screen it down. Councillor Courtley.
Do we not have a job description or a list of qualifications from the last 20 times that council's hired a CAO? Not particularly our council, but there has been something from before that we can go by, is there not? Or tweak?
Well, yeah.
We're not going to
Yes.
reinvent the wheel, are we?
Exactly. Well, there is a job description. We may want to tweak or edit that as we move forward with the new CAO. So that's something else that this committee could look at, that job description, say, hey, does this accurately reflect what we want to see? There's also a job description right in the MGA that outlines sort of the main things.
Yeah.
But we can add to that. So there's, like I say, you're right. That's almost the first step, is to stop back and
Exactly.
look at that job description to make sure that it's what we want and it includes everything that we want.
Okay.
Councillor Rose.
Yeah, I don't know if this is as relevant now, but I mean, one of the things that, and Councillor Courtley, were you part of the process the last time when we hired Mr. Martinson?
No.
Okay. So one of the things that were identified, because we had hired a consultant and they helped us with that process. And what we sort of identified was that the qualifications are like they're saying, there's a list of qualifications, MGA, and on a list of paper. But councils have to decide whether they want somebody who's really strictly sort of a public works supervisor, manager, because that's a big part of a town CAO. But another component, and I kind of felt like that's what we were looking for, because we have really good public works guys. So it wasn't necessarily, we had Brian and we had Vern and Mike, so we kept the questions that we kept on asking, and that came back to us from our consultant. He said, you're asking for somebody who's got some economic development and some like you're asking for another piece that isn't really just a public works guy. So that's something that our council maybe has to determine, is, you're right, what is it that we're actually looking for? And are we looking for someone that's going to sort of fit into that piece where we sort of have been missing? We haven't had somebody in economic development for a long time. We don't have that position. You have to identify what the expectation. Do you want this CAO to launch you into, sort of more development and sort of the growth component, right? Communication, growth, that kind of thing, or is it somebody who's so it does matter what their background is. If their background comes from I used to be a public works supervisor, or I used to be an economic development person. They still have qualifications and they still meet the qualifications, but us as a council can do some thinking as to what we want. Because yeah, that did come up the last time, that maybe we hadn't identified it prior to the interviews.
Right.
You're breaking up again, Debbie, just so that you know. You might have to go back to your window. Councillor Gilroy.
I guess Debbie wants an internet specialist as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
No, you have to remember that at the same time, in the last little while, since Mr. Martinson's been here, we've added to his portfolio, including recreation. So we have to make sure we have an up-to-date list of all the things he is responsible for right now, the council has put on there, not just looking at previous ones. And so I think that'd be, I like Councillor Danaka's idea, get together, flesh out what we want, give it to whoever is the ad hoc committee, let them pare it down, bring it back, and get this on the road, like Arlen said. And I'd love to hear what Judy has to say.
No, I'm in full agreement with, we all get together and get a baseline. And you made a really good point about all the different job descriptions that have been added to the portfolio. We need an up-to-date what our CAO is doing and what we're all looking for, and then we throw it back. But keep in mind that this committee is, yeah, just setting the guidelines, not making the full decision.
Okay, do we want to add one more to it? I'm fine with doing a friendly amendment to my motion if there's anybody that wants to be on the ad hoc committee.
I would volunteer to be on it if you want to be on it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll make a friendly motion then to add Councillor Gilroy to that ad hoc committee. Okay. With all of that said, can we get we'll vote on that motion to create the ad hoc committee with myself, Councillor Danaka, and Councillor Gilroy. All those in favor? No, Judy said yes and then withdrew her vote. Okay, good. You're just fast, that's all. All right, thanks. Okay, so that one passes. We'll move on then to the ISDAB appointment. Can I get a motion on that one? Go ahead, Councillor Stenhouse. Oh, I see Brian had his hands up too, but.
Councillor Stenhouse can take my place on this.
Okay, thanks. The council received the letter of interest. No. That council appoint Mr. John Fleming to the Intermunicipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board for a term of 2 years.
All right, perhaps I can turn it over to our CAO to tell us why his recommendation there.
I didn't think Mr. Fleming would be a good fit for this committee.
All
Isn't
right.
isn't he the only applicant?
He
Yep.
is the only applicant. Can
Well,
you expand on that, Councillor CAO Martinson?
pretty hard to do in a public meeting.
I'd care not to.
If I can just put a word in here, please. when we look at the makeup of this, of the 4 partners, the majority of the sitting for any one municipal development board appeal, we'll call it, is made up a majority of non-politicians. Right now, as we pointed out when the mayor was so kind to take the 3rd spot there, he took it because no one had applied. But we still had no one from our community that would be able to be a non-politician. And this particular gentleman has also already served on one committee. He's new to the community. And I think we need to encourage people in the community that we are willing, if they are willing, to be on our committees.
Councillor Danaka, did you have another question? No, okay. Councillor Gilroy again? All right. Councillor Rose.
I'm sure there's probably something behind the concern, but I kind of I'm agreeing with Councillor Gilroy. If we don't really get a lot of people that sign up and want positions for town committees. We worked with this fellow before once in the past. I didn't see any challenges as far as I can tell. So I don't know if it'll be difficult to not accept the one application that we had. I mean, if we had a number of applications and there's some, you know, there's a process that we can select, but I think we're sending a message to the community that it will make it even more difficult to get people to put their name forward.
Well, what did Mr. Fleming do? What committee was he on before? I don't know. I don't know.
He was with us on branding.
Oh, okay.
He was on our branding committee.
Well, and I do know that you may get an application that might not be a good fit, even though they have applied. Just because they put in their name doesn't mean that they are a good fit for doing this committee work. I don't know this person at all, so I don't know the ability there or if it would be a good fit, but just something to consider there too.
I have met him, and one of the things he said, he's only been here for a short period of time, but one of the things he said is the desire to make this community better. And when I look at the committee, he's not going to be meeting with Councillor Rose and Councillor Stenhouse. He's going to be meeting with the other municipalities. So whoever we put in there would have, we don't know what the dynamics would be on that board anyway. So as I said, if you've got someone who's willing to commit their name and wants to see the best for this community, I'm always for something like that.
Now, would we have to take somebody off the existing committee to appoint this person? Brian?
Nope, we don't have to remove anybody.
Because we currently have 3 people on the committee, is that right?
Yes, yes,
And this would be a 4th?
yes. Long as they get the training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and just a little bit of a sidebar, the training that goes with this was supposed to be online in the next little while, but did somebody say it was canceled? It was supposed to be online training, I thought.
No, it was, the initial training was, the closest we could get was in Calgary. And then after that, Reynolds Mirth Farmer, the lawyer's firm, had offered it in Edmonton. So I had registered yourself and Councillor Rose for that one. And then with the COVID come in, they canceled it. So we haven't heard of any future training yet.
Okay, for some reason in my calendar, I have a subdivision appeal board training, a webinar on May 27th. I don't know, it's an all-day thing in my calendar, but I'm not sure where that came from.
I don't have it in mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's in my calendar. I'm not sure where it came from. I can do some more looking into it again, but just was wondering. Okay. We have a motion. Any more comments on this one? All right. We have a motion to appoint Mr. Fleming to the Subdivision Appeal Board for 2 years. All those in favor?
That's the motion? I thought it was to receive it for information.
No. The motion was made by Councillor Stenhouse to appoint him for 2 years.
Okay.
Councillor Courtley. Okay, that motion passes. Moving on then to our next agenda item, which is the taxation notice, item 8.3. There is a change from what's in our agenda package on this one. Somebody would like to make the motion with the new amount? I don't see anybody doing that, so I'll make the motion that council approve the COVID-19 tax relief on the 2020 taxation notices on the municipal levy portion only in the total amount of $286,987.58 to coincide with the attached 1179 roll numbers and the amounts for each individual property. All right, go ahead, Brian.
I just want to show council that I got the attachment here with all the roll numbers on it, and it lists no names, just the roll numbers. The transaction description, which was on the sample of the tax notice that I put in the package, and it says COVID-19 20 tax relief, and then it has the amount, and then the amount on the back adds up to the $286,978.58. So this will be attached and form part of the minutes. And that was my discussion with Municipal Affairs. They had advised that we add that because they said someplace along the line there'll be some ratepayer that come in that said he didn't get it, and we can pull the list up out of from the minutes and show them.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, good. Okay, Councillor Stenhouse.
Okay, so with this example, this is how it's going to show, but I noticed an error on the bottom. It says the last date before penalty, it says June 30th, 2020. Should that not read September?
This was just to show where the COVID tax relief was going to be put in the notice, to see if we could put it in there. It's not an official notice.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, it looks really good how it's showing there. That's awesome that it shows up that way. Councillor Gilroy?
Just a reminder that at the same time, yeah, it's good we're doing this, but I noticed that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is working to lobby both the federal and provincial governments to see if we can be reimbursed for this. And so they were suggesting that we keep records of, just as we talked about before, why and how. And so just want to make sure we have some reasoning, unless we're just going to be altruistic, such as Councillor Long has suggested before. If there's a way we can get it back, I'd love to get it back, but if not, I will settle with helping out our community in this way.
Brian, I had sent out that question about the different amount compared to what the tax notice was, and you sent out and said that we didn't get all of the tax assessments. Some of the dips weren't included. The dips. So does that mean that we're going to be getting in additional tax dollars than we asked for? Or can the town only ask for the amount that we specified in the tax notice?
No, we'll be getting extra money.
Okay, as a part of that.
Yeah, if you could give me a second, I wrote it down here. I think it was 400 and some thousand.
Well, yeah, I looked it up, or I calculated it out. It would be about $364,707 additional taxes collected on top of the what we had in the tax notice. But you got a different amount. But if I take the difference and multiply it by 12, that's
right.
the amount that I came up with.
I think it was, I don't have a calculator in front of me, but I thought it was like with the missed properties, and there was a couple in there from Heart River Housing Houses. It amounted to $38,031.51 times 11. Comes to what?
Okay. You got a different amount. I've got an amount from what I figured it should be, which was the 256, which was 1/12 of what was on the tax notice. And that was the 256,000 to the 286,000. It was a difference of 30,000. I took that 30,392, multiplied it by 12, and that's where I came up with the 364. But if that's the amount that it totals out to is the 384, that's fine, or the 286, that's good. And it's also, I guess, going to be a positive that if we are allowed to collect that additional tax on top of what the tax notice said, that's also good. That'll be good for the town. Okay. All right, any more comments or questions on this notice? All right, let's vote on accepting it. All those in favor? All right, that motion passes. Moving right along to Bylaw 08-2020. This was the bylaw that we were talking about earlier from our fire chief. Can I get a motion on this one, Councillor Gilroy?
The council give first reading to Bylaw 08-2020 this 12th day of May 2020 and direct administration to advertise the bylaw for 14 consecutive days.
Okay. Any discussions on this one? We had a little bit of a preview. Oh, I see Councillor Stenhouse. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to bring it back to the recommendations that were given to us March 25th and May 5th. And
Councillor Stenhouse, just this is the bylaw for the fire and charging for fire. Are you referring to the cannabis bylaw?
No, I'm referring to this one.
Okay, sorry.
I'm referring to this one because it says that these are our recommendations. There's 9 points. And it says, do not introduce any new bylaws or guidelines other than those needed to address the COVID-19. And we have been doing that. And there is a fee attached to this new bylaw.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you're saying that council should not be doing any bylaws at this point in time, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
Not ones attached with a fee to it, and that are going to affect businesses. Well,
Okay, now I understand what you were saying. I thought you were referring to the COVID or the cannabis bylaw is why you were bringing it up again. So I understand better now. Okay, Councillor Gilroy.
no,
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Jody, finish.
because we had even brought this up at our COVID meeting that we were following these guidelines. And now we're accepting bylaws. Now we're implementing a brand new bylaw that has a fee attached to it.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
why that's why. Okay.
Councillor Gilroy.
Okay. Normally, I would agree with Councillor Stenhouse, and I will agree with her on probably the other bylaws. However, we only have two options for the fire truck, as far as I understand it. One is we pay out of our reserves, or we do this and make the bylaw, which will not affect our people this year, but will affect us next year, I believe. And with the amount of time it will take and the number of procedurals that takes, that's why I'm in favor, because we do need that new fire truck. And we don't have the cash or the reserves, especially in light of the other letter in this package from the county. So I'm all in favor of the bylaw because we need the truck.
Councillor Courtly.
I'm going to say something I normally wouldn't say. Councillor Gilroy, I totally agree with you. Right? I know, it's crazy. But you're right, and I do agree. This is something that has to go, and we have to do this right.
Go ahead, CAO Martinson.
I think where this come from in where the recommendation was not to pass any bylaws was for like a local improvement bylaw where it would affect residents, say on a block. If you're going to repave a block and you're going to charge the residents on both sides, because before them bylaws are passed, the residents on that block would have a chance to petition that bylaw to say no against it. And with the COVID, it's basically not given that option to the people to go out and do petitions and that. I think that's where that bit on not passing them types of bylaws were in place. It wasn't for like a normal bylaw, such as a borrowing bylaw, that is when I talked to municipal affairs, they didn't say nothing about, we couldn't go ahead, and it'd be no different than sitting in, if you, all of you were sitting in the council chambers here and we're making this same motion here. It has nothing to do with the general public. It will cost somewhat, but our debentures will be dropping after next year too. So I think we're losing $100,000 and some debenture on one of the, which one? On the water plant.
Okay, I see Councillor Stenhouse with her hand up again.
Sorry, I want to, sorry, I want to apologize. I was referring to the wrong bylaw. I thought this was the one where they were introducing for the inspections. I apologize for the confusion here.
Okay. I'll just give my comments. I mean, Councillor Gilroy says that yes, you know, we should go ahead with it. I mean, we do have another option. We do have money in our reserves that could cover this fire truck costs. So, I mean, it is an option. It's not our only option to go out and borrow money. I'm also in favor of, I mean, the interest rates are low. It's a good time to do it, but we don't need or have to do it. So I just wanted people to know that we do have the money in reserves if we wanted to do that, to pay for this truck. Councillor Gilroy.
What I actually meant was, in light of the fact that we will be losing all the capital, and we're also giving the tax, changing the tax deadline and things like that, I would rather have allowed us to use all that extra money we have in reserve as a cash float, so that we can allow everyone to have the benefits we're offering here. So that was my idea, is to free up more cash to give administration all the leeway they need to pay all the bills, as well as to be patient in how people pay their taxes. That was more of what I was getting at. So if I misled anyone, I'm sorry, but that was my impression, is to do it this way instead.
Okay, any other comments? I don't see any more, so we have a motion to approve this bylaw for first reading. All of those in favor? Okay, it passes. On to our next bylaw, which is the cannabis consumption bylaw. Can I get a motion on this one? Everybody's quiet there. Councillor Courtney.
The council give first reading to bylaw 09-2020, the cannabis consumption bylaw, this 12th day of May 2020.
Thank you. Brian, can you tell us what they've added to this cannabis consumption bylaw?
We asked MMSA, our planners and that, to look over the bylaw and to add whatever was required in there. And basically this just adds to our land use bylaw on that. So
Adds to our cannabis consumption bylaw?
yes, it's edible.
Yeah,
It just reflects edible. So
okay. Councillor Gilroy.
Did this go through the proper channels, going through the bylaw committee? Is this their recommendation as per procedure?
no, it wasn't. Came right from MMSA.
Yet MMSA guided us on the other marijuana type laws, and that still went through bylaw committee.
Okay, any other comments on this? I mean, we don't have to go through the bylaw. It is something that we tend to, but if we're getting it developed outside, I don't know if it's as critical if we're not developing it internally to review it. But it's the point, if we want to put it through bylaw, we can. Or through our bylaw review committee. But I know they're busy enough as it is. This is fairly minor adjustment. All right, I don't see any other comments on this one. So we have a motion to receive for first reading. All of those in favor?
Can everybody hear Brian? Pretty good, because he keeps on fading in and out for everybody else.
Which Brian?
You.
Oh, okay. Arlen says he can hear me fine, but I'm fading out for some of the rest of you.
Kind of
Just
choppy.
me, maybe.
Okay. What I might do is I can put my headset on and see if that helps. I'll try that. Okay, that motion passes. And moving on, do we want to move to a second reading? Or we've got one done? Do we got, okay, I see a hand up for, oh, I saw a hand up with Councillor Stenhouse.
Is there a chance that the bylaw committee can go review this and go through it and fine tune it like we did with the cannabis one before we take it to final reading?
Yeah, absolutely, if we feel we need to. But we need a motion to get started on it. Some more discussion, so can I get a motion at this point? Councillor Rose.
The council gives second reading to bylaw 09/2020, the cannabis consumption bylaw, this 12th day of May, 2020.
Okay, thank you. So we got a motion to give it second reading. We know we can take it to or refer it to the bylaw committee if we would like. So that's an option. Any other discussion before we vote on this one? Councillor Stenhouse?
It's too bad the peace officer wasn't here, because how are they testing for this? Like how are they going to separate this from the smoking one?
Brian, can you answer that? Other than what's in there?
I can't answer that. I don't know how they test for it.
And like, you know, like do they have to witness them actually taking it? That's why I'm against this. Like, there's too many unanswered questions here on how they're going to enforce this. Like, it's different when they're smoking. We can see them doing it and see the smoke, but when it's an edible, that's why I really don't want this to go to final reading. There's too many unanswered questions yet.
I hear some background noise.
Yeah,
Where's that coming from? Oh, I think it's from Donna's speakers moving up and down. No, that's not it. Oh, okay. All right. So you're saying you'd like to see it delayed until bylaw reviews it?
Well, yeah, because we're going to be questioned on this, and we can't be saying, well, I don't know. I'd like the bylaw to review it and get some answers to some of these questions on how this is implemented.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilroy.
Is it possible that if bylaw does look at it, that they could just ask our senior officer there to just spend a few minutes explaining these things and answering any questions, so that when they bring it back, people like Councillor Stenhouse will have no questions on it, and that they'll be able to explain it fully to anybody else who has questions?
Okay, yeah, that's doable if we do that. All right, I see no more hands up. So We have a motion to give it second reading. We've had some councillors speak against it, but we have a motion to give it second reading. All of those in favor? Okay, that motion passes. All right, we want to go with a third reading. I don't think we'll get to a third reading because we have to have unanimous consent, and I don't think that we have unanimous consent. So we'll stop after 2 readings. And, you know, at this point, we can still take it to, I'm not sure, when does our bylaw review committee meet next?
We haven't had a meeting for a while.
Do we know when the next meeting is scheduled for?
No.
No.
Probably not till early June.
Okay. All right, well, we can, if they're not meeting for any time soon, we have to decide whether we want to put it back through that bylaw review committee and wait, or because we could bring it through to our next council meeting to give it the third and final reading. Councillor Courtley.
Just reading through this quickly, all they've done is added edibles basically to the you're asking them how they're physically tracking it on the street and how they're detecting it, Judy? Because this says they still cover all their same bases as far as where you can and can't, and that nothing else has changed. All they've added was cannabis edibles to the same. So as far as how they physically track it or even detect it, that's in the hands of the police, and that's something that I don't think that's we have anything to do with. We just say it's not allowed there. How they detect it and how they do it is up to them, correct? Or am I looking at that wrong?
Wow. See, oh,
I'm just saying that's because it really hasn't changed. All the bylaw is basically the same. They just added edibles under the Cannabis Act.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong, but do we think we could get a motion that has to be unanimous that we go to third and final reading, but I don't think it'll pass. So at this point, people can review it. People can look at it, ask any questions they have, and at next council meeting, we can vote on it. It may not go to the bylaw review committee if they're not meeting in time. So, but at the next meeting, if we're not happy with it, it can go back in. We'll have another chance to vote on it. So moving on then to our next bylaw. It's the amendment to the fees bylaw. Can I get a motion on 10.3? Councillor Rose.
Well, that was my hand up for the last question, but I'll try to find the. Council give first reading to bylaw 10/2020, the amendment to fees by this 12th day of May 2020.
Okay, thank
But
you.
my hand was just up about SA, if we can get them to sign on. You can't hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Just based on the last conversation, like maybe we can get MMSA to provide us their feedback on that cannabis bylaw if we have some questions, if we don't have the answers, because if they were the one that helped present it, can they not just dial in and help us answer questions potentially?
So if anybody has some serious questions about it,
But anyway,
and
that's the motion for, sorry to jump there.
yeah, if we have serious questions, we can bring them to administration, and if we need MMSA on, we can certainly invite them on to talk on this bylaw. Okay, so moving on to the fees bylaw. This was the bylaw to ensure that we get compliance with the safety codes that the fire chief had brought up earlier today. And I see Councillor Gilroy's got his hand up already, so we'll let him start us off.
Actually, it was just a quick question about amending for the fees bylaw. And it goes back to a discussion I had with CAO Martinson previously about if we changed fees for anything else, would we have to change the bylaw for all of them, or is it this is only a specific instance? For example, if we change the amount that we wanted to change for the peddler bylaw, to change it to back to $500 for one of these trucks that come in and sell in our community and then drive away, would that have to be another bylaw amendment? Or how do you change that? Because if we can combine both together, I would be more in favor of that to save us some paperwork. But I am in favor of supporting this as it is if we can't.
Do you want to go ahead, Brian? You're on mute though.
I think it'd have to come back. The peddler's license. And again, I would probably send that to the Budget and Policy Review Committee to bring a number back that they would be comfortable with.
Okay, so that would be a totally separate, we'd have to go through the bylaw again after that then.
Yeah.
Okay, just asking.
I have a question, I guess, I'm not sure who, but we have obviously, there must be another bylaw that says these town businesses and homes have to meet the bylaw, and if they don't meet the bylaw, that is there a penalty? Does it mention in that other bylaw? Because we're adjusting the fees bylaw, but somewhere in another bylaw, it's got to refer you to if you're non-compliant, then you will have a fee from the fees bylaw. You'll have a penalty from the fees bylaw. So what's the other bylaw that we're dealing with here?
Nancy's going to go get the fees bylaw, but I'll just speak in reference to this inspection fees. And as I alluded to before, there is a process, but it's very, very long and drawn out. And I know, and I don't speak just strictly on businesses. It's everything except residential in the community, and it all has to do with safety and safety codes. And obviously, this is not going to be something that's just going to be for minor infractions. The intent is, as in discussion with my mentors, like there are some fairly severe infractions that. Basically, it takes a very, very long process for anything to happen through the safety codes process. And I'm talking potentially years. When you have very important safety features that are supposed to be operational and they aren't, then basically we're putting, I guess, residents and people at risk. And this is, again, this isn't my thought. This is St. Albert, and I didn't do any research if there's any more, but they implemented this, and they've had very good success with getting places fixing their operations up so that they meet some kind of safety compliance, basically. And again, it's not right off of the bat. Like, I mean, you know, if I look at this, a person basically has like 3 months to get their things in order.
Oh, you're getting called to action here. Everybody wants to see you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay, I see Councillor Stenhouse got her hand up.
Okay, I have a couple questions for the fire chief. So it says the fire department had difficulty to get businesses, etc., to comply. What does the etc. stand for?
Well, like I said, it's not just businesses, it's structures within the community. So not only businesses, but everything else. So for example, the sports palace, also example, the bingo hall and the Elks grounds, those kinds of things, right? So safety codes applies to everything except dwellings, residential dwellings.
Okay, and my next question is, when on Schedule A, the application and inspection fees, it says second and subsequent reinspection will be $125, but they won't be charged. Will they be charged that if they corrected it, or they only get charged that if it's not corrected?
If I have to come back and it's not corrected, then yes, that's when the fee would be applied.
Okay, and my last question is, in the bylaw, number 6, bulletin, council and shall remain intact for those goods and services as delivered to the community.
I'm not sure quite the wording of that. I didn't actually write that part.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for, clarification on what number 6 meant.
Council and shall remain intact. I would assume that was from the previous bylaw for fees. That's where that came from. I honestly don't. I didn't type that up, so I can't reply to that.
Okay.
Okay, now Councillor Gilroy, your hand is up. Was that from before?
That's the
or is
second
this
question.
Okay.
The first part of the question is, so we're looking at this to be incorporated into the 2021 fees bylaw, not this year's. Is that correct?
I would prefer that it's the 2020, but I guess ultimately I can't really do a whole lot of this until I complete that safety codes training with the practical aspect. So that's going to be July, is at the earliest that that things can actually start in this process.
Okay. The other thing I had was, now I'm probably new at this, but if there are liquor license infractions, isn't that the province that steps in and says your license is pulled? Whether it is the Elks rodeo or someone giving offering parties at one of the halls around here that tries to get a liquor license. How does that then become the fire department as opposed to the provincial liquor license saying your license is pulled because you're not following safety standards?
Are you like, so you're talking about the liquor licensing process?
It says the inspection service for liquor licenses in Schedule A.
Oh, the
And to me, when it
64.
talks about liquor licenses, that would be first of all having to be inspected to see if you're allowed to have it, and then secondly, if you contravene it.
No,
That's
what,
just
sorry, what that has to deal with is occupancy load certificates. In a liquor license, the host of the liquor license has to have a occupancy load for the place that they're holding the event. And if it is not in place, then obviously they're not going to be able to host that event. But there has been places in town here that actually don't have occupancy loads. And I've had to go through the process of trying to get occupancy loads for the place so that events can take place there. So that's just basically, covering the time that it takes for me to go through the process of getting an occupancy load for that place. And I guess so that the town is not being held responsible for paying for the occupancy load. It's ultimately the place that should be responsible for getting the occupancy load that's going to be paying for it. All places should have an occupancy load, but I'm finding that there aren't.
okay. Thank you. I appreciate that because I thought that normally that would have been part of your liquor license to say that you have that, and so I guess it's not part of the application for liquor license.
It is part of the liquor license, but there are places that do not have occupancy loads done.
Okay. So just so that I'm clear, so you go out and do an inspection. They have to pay $64 for that inspection service, or it's no charge, because the initial inspection says no charge, but up above, inspection services are $64. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around, is it $64 or is it free for the first inspection?
There are some places that are required to have inspections by whatever agencies that they're operating under. So in that case, then basically, you could have the initial inspection, but the initial inspection services for the liquor licenses for occupancy loads is where that is being charged, because writing occupancy loads is actually quite a bit of work. You have to take measurements of the structure, you have to take measurements of the doors, all kinds of considerations. And what I have actually been doing is, because on some places with the new safety codes, I've been having to get the assistance of the fire commissioner's office to do that. So it's involving quite a bit more work to go through that process. So the initial inspections for occupancy loads is at $64, but initial inspections for other places, businesses, buildings, etc., the initial inspection, there is no charge. And the idea of that is so that we're looking at the buildings and making sure that they are operating safely and providing a service to the people with safety in mind.
Okay, thanks. So I understand the difference now. The one is just for liquor licenses or an occupancy load determination is
Correct.
$64.
Correct.
For going into when you go into a hotel, just as an example, to make sure that they're meeting fire standards, there's no charge for that.
Yes.
And when you come back, you've given them a list of any deficiencies and you can re-inspect, and you're not charging them for that.
Correct.
But if they haven't fixed it by the first time you come back, and you have to come back a second time, you're charging them $125 to come back.
Right.
Okay. And then if you have to come back a third time, it's $500.
Right. And if I come back that second time and I see, okay, they've got everything that needs to get done, then then they aren't going to get charged that. But if I come back there and nothing's been fixed, then the $125 is going to be applied. If I come back the third time and they have everything fixed, then that $500 does not get applied. If they don't have everything fixed, or whatever on a working relationship, then that $500 will get applied. So they have a lot of time and a lot of, I guess, decision to make, I guess, but time to get things done. Like this year is not going to be within 2 weeks or 1 week or anything like that. I'm envisioning, depending on how bad the issue is, whether or not it would be immediate, because there are some things that need to be immediately addressed, and then some things that you can give a couple weeks or a month or something like that is the suggestion from the mentor that I talked to.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for that. I'll make a couple of suggestions for wording. Is you say second and subsequent re-inspections. Maybe it should take out the subsequent, because if you have to come back a third time, it's a different amount. So the second re-inspection is to determine, if you take out the and subsequent.
Okay.
And then I like your idea of saying if it has been corrected, maybe a note in here that there will be no charge if the deficiencies are corrected, just to make sure it's clear, because it's not really clear if we would charge that regardless of whether or not they're corrected.
I like that, yeah.
Councillor Rose has her hand up.
I was just going to say the same thing as what the mayor had mentioned about just sort of some clarity. The other thing that I think maybe we could add some clarity on is where we talk about the inspection services for liquor license, and it's $64. So you've just cleared that up with us verbally. But if I was to look at this without having the opportunity to have the conversation, I would be confused about the inspection services for liquor licenses, and then down below where it says initial inspection, no charge. And then the first re-inspection to determine if there's deficiencies or no charge. I wonder if we just added initial inspection for all premises other than requiring liquor licenses, because if that's the only discrepancy, otherwise it's not really clear what the difference is. Unless there's something else there. I don't know if there's a better way to word that, so it's just a little clearer.
Basically, if I look at this a little further, the heading that has fire code or safety code compliance, everything below that applies to that. The inspection services for liquor licenses, occupancy load certificates is a standalone line, but it's not clear on that. And I guess, yes, there is a way to kind of clean that up, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, and you also have that number 6 that Councillor Stenhouse brought up. Doesn't make sense?
Not really, and I like I said, I don't know. I can't comment to that because I didn't type that stuff in there.
Okay, and just going back to the first question I had, what bylaw has to be that refers them to this fees bylaw? What bylaws that says, if you need an inspection, the rates are going to be in the fees bylaw?
This is under the fire services bylaw, I believe.
Okay, so it does, because it would refer them to the fees bylaw, or does that bylaw need to be amended also in conjunction with charging fees now?
Brian is saying no.
No? Okay. I'd like to, before we go much further, I'd want to make sure we were clear on what that fire bylaw says and how it refers them to charges being made for this.
This is just in addition to, there's already the fire services bylaw, and there are a number of fees that the fire department already has, I guess, in the listing. This is just adding to the list is what this is doing.
Okay. Okay. I think before would be doing a third and final reading. For myself, I'd want to just see the fire bylaw just to make sure I understand how it ties into the two, or the two work together. But that's just me. And with some of these errors that we brought up, I think we can give it first reading, but I don't know if we can give it final reading today. It might have to come back to the meeting in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But we have a motion to give first reading to this bylaw. I think we've exhausted the questions, which was lots. But all of those in favor of giving this first reading? Okay, that motion passes. Do we want to make a motion on second reading? Or do we just want to wait till next one? It's up to you guys. If somebody wants to make a motion, we can. I don't see anybody's hands going up. So I guess that will say, please bring it back to the next council meeting with some of those changes that we talked about, and we'll get through it then.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. All right, moving on then to our CAO's report and action list. Can I get a oh, I see Councillor Gilroy's got his hand up already.
That council received the CAO's, Brian Martinson's report and action list for information.
All right, thank you for that. And I'll turn it over to our CAO to walk us through this report.
Just to add to it, we were going to set up the Welcome to High Prairie sign, a new sign on the west end of High Prairie, but we had a forced main sewer line break out by the new hospital. So the public works crew's been out there for the last couple of days. So I see they have the pad mat built for the one on west end. So I'm sure it'll be installed during the next rest of this week sometime. So. Other than that, do you have any questions?
Councillor Gilroy, was your hand up for the motion, or is that a question? Okay, he took it down. So Councillor Tanaka.
Did you ever get a response from Jessica on that tourism email that you sent about the 15,000?
They said they were looking into it. That was all. She's working remotely from home right now, so which most of their crew over there is, I believe. So she hasn't got back to me since I sent the initial request. But I'll keep following up with it.
Okay. So to follow up further with that, and this goes into the next thing about the county. So they're rescinding our 2019 amount and our 2020 amount, but why are we giving them $15,000? Can you refresh my memory? I know it's in the IDP, but I mean, do we have to pay them the $15,000? Because I doubt if their kiosk or whatever they've got going this year is going to happen.
It was in the intermunicipal agreement, and up till the COVID come in, I believe that it was still a go. So we budgeted for it in our budget, and we'll wait and see. We have a intermunicipal meeting, I believe, on the 21st. I don't know if Councillor Courtley, Rose, and Mayor Panasic got an invite to that today from Jessica.
I did. Yes, I got one.
And at that meeting, we're also going to discuss the 2019 funding that was still allocated to us. So I believe we could use that funding towards our new upgrades to our water plant.
Okay, any other questions, Councillor Danaka? Okay, Councillor Rose.
Just two things. One, Councillor Danaka, I think that the funding, I mean, I agree, I see where you're going with it, but I think it wasn't so much for the kiosk, was it not, that we had approved that funding based on that presentation of a tourism website? Isn't that the way we were going? And so the right now is actually really good timing if that's going to go through, like being able to continue to support that, because we're entering into a virtual world more than any time. So anyway, I just wanted to see for sure if that's what it was for. And if it is, then I think that that should be fine. And otherwise, I just wanted to say good job on those signs on the outside of town, or on the east side of town. Lots of positive comments. Everybody's loving the, I haven't, you know, for all the tidbits of negativity that we got, because of course there's always a little bit right after we did the rebranding. People were lots of comments about how they thought they would like the old sign, and as soon as the new sign's gone up, we've heard nothing besides positive things. So great job, Brian.
Thanks to my crew.
Thanks to all of them.
Yep.
Was that your only comment, Deb, or any more? That's it. Okay, Councillor Stenhouse.
Yes, it was my understanding also that 15,000 was for the website, and that we did, if I recall right, we did have the option of only doing it as a trial too, that we could pull out at any time. That was my understanding of that. And it was, that's what I said, for a website, it wasn't for a kiosk. I don't remember any discussion on that.
Yeah, my understanding of it too is for the website, the design. And again, I don't know where they're at with it. I know they were supposed to be working on it and getting it hosted and that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure where it's at.
I'll ask Jordan to add it to the intermunicipal.
Perfect. I was just going to suggest that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Gilroy.
Since we're talking intermunicipal, and we were assured before we voted on the new agreement that it was flexible, can we ask our committee, since this is about the only way I can get everyone at once, to put in a clarification as to when the county's allowed to exercise, I think it's number 11, to opt out of paying something, that we have parameters for it, so that we don't have to go back and say, can we please have our 2019 back? I think we need a clarification of, it should be for the current fiscal year that they're talking about, and not going back, because the way I look at it is that when we had the problem with the early snow, when we had the Prairie River Junior High work, we couldn't pay them until it was finished. So we used 2018 money in 2019 to pay for it because of weather-wise. And so I'd like to have a clarification brought into that meeting, so that if they exercise 11, which they have a right to do, that it be only for the current year, that the current municipal year, as opposed to previous years. So if you could do that, I appreciate that. And secondly, is there any positive news that you'd like to share with the community, other than the fact that we're welcoming back businesses this week that'll be able to reopen? Is there any other positive things you'd like to share with us?
I could, but I don't want to put my foot in my mouth like the Tim Hortons, so I'm going to abstain for now. But the funding will be discussed at the intermunicipal also. So.
Okay, did you have anything else, Brian, or you were just responding to Councillor Gilroy's comments? Okay. I was, in your report, you had mentioned that, work is progressing well on the pool and that you met with the Public Works and Recreation staff after the special meeting we had for pandemic relief. What came out of those meetings and what's the status of the work at the pool?
First, I talked with the recreation guys, and they have only 3 permanent employees at the arena right now. So that's all the employees that are there, and they'll be continuing to cut grass during the summer. If the weather's bad and whatever, they'll be working inside painting. There is some brine leaks within the cement pad of the Sports Palace, so they'll have to get Simcoe up here to try to locate them, jackhammer the cement out, make them repairs. So that's going to be a fairly big project right there. The pool is they probably got, I would say, I'm looking at probably 3 more weeks in there yet with them 4 ladies doing the clean and that in there. And the lockers, half the lockers have been done. They've been painted now, and they're installed now. And I believe they're taking some more down. They're not going to have as many in there as what they originally had. They make more room for benches and whatever else. So I also talked to them about going on in the future. Depends on how long this lasts. If we don't have work on the outside for them to keep them busy working, painting or whatever, that the unemployment option would be forwarded to them also at that time. So they're aware of what's going on. I also talked to Darlene and her one staff at the museum a bit, and she had some suggestions that what they're going to look at, and that's alternating time so that they're not both in there when they're open. Take some holidays to cover off sometimes now so that they can take holidays now instead of in the summer. So, and again, we talked about the unemployment there also. So they're all aware of what's happening. It just depends on how long we're going on with the COVID. So.
All right. Any other questions for CAO? Oh, I see Councillor Danaka now.
So you mentioned talking about the 3 arena people, and they'll be mowing the grass and that kind of stuff. Will their wage be the same for what they're doing in the arena as opposed to mowing the grass?
Yes, it will be.
It will be the same.
It will be the same, yeah. It's been the same for the last 30 years. So.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to also, just on the positive side, echo those signs look good coming into town. And Brian, you had mentioned that there was maybe a little bit of paint was chipping off. Did you hear anything back from the company?
We haven't heard back from them yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, I see Councillor Rose has got her hand up.
Just a point of maybe clarification, and maybe Mr. Martinson, you can help me with it. I know that Councillor Danaka is asking about the arena staff and the fact that their changes sort of in their job, but ultimately, I think that what they're doing now is what they normally did in the summer, because the arenas always close at the end of March. So they were arena staff. They were just recreation staff, but they were cutting grass and looking after the ball diamonds. So they're still really doing that same job, even though we don't necessarily have the ball diamonds and stuff open, right? So is this pretty well what the recreation or the arena staff always did in the summer, Brian? Like, I don't see that, I agree that we've got some changes in the pool because our pool's not open, but our arena is normally closed now until the end of the summer anyway, right?
Yeah.
So our arena staff basically doing the same thing. Like, there's no real changes in the staffing or what they would normally do. Like, COVID isn't really affecting that, is it?
There is changing in the staff because usually they have 5 people.
So
in
we were
play
down
there.
to 3 when we
Down to
used to have
3, yeah.
5.
Yes.
Okay. And that's just about, because that's what they normally did, right? Was look after the ball diamonds, do the grass
Yes.
cutting and maintenance on the arena and things like that.
Yes.
Thanks.
Councillor Gilroy.
Well, knowing that we want to, in a sense, keep our guys busy, just wondering the update on the gymnastics room, since that would be one of the projects that they would have to be doing right now. So what's the progress on that, please?
They're installing flooring in the drywall in there right now. They had to put down a subfloor first before the flooring went down. And I believe they were waiting for the gymnastics club to come back to move some of the mats so they can continue replacing the ceiling tiles. They were using scaffolding to put the ceiling tiles in.
So the gymnastics club is holding us up now? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, we're still working in the front part,
Oh, okay.
you know, where the floor was bare and where the water damage was on the drywall. We're replacing that stuff, but it's going good. I just actually did a new contract up for the gymnastics club and took it over to Mrs. Barton to review, and she was gonna take it through her committee. I did that one. I also did the skate sharpening contract at the Sports Palace. And I thought there was 3, but I can't think. Huh? Oh, the concession. The arena concession was the other one. So.
Good. Was she able to get rid of her food to the golf club?
I believe she did, yes.
Oh, that's good. Good.
So now they're stuck with it.
Yeah. Well, they'll be opening soon. They'll be opening on Thursday. So,
I think Clubhouse has got to be closed though, don't they?
Yeah.
well, they do right now, but after the 14th, there'll be a restaurant, and I think they'll be able to open up at half occupancy.
Yes.
I think, anyways. That's what would be my assumption.
We should have a COVID-19 golf tournament.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions for a CAO? All right, I don't see any. We had a motion to receive his report for information. All of those in favor? All right, that motion passes. Moving on to our FCSS report. Can I get a motion for this one? Councillor Stenhouse?
The council receives the FCSS report for April, the FCSS monthly stats comparison report, and the FCSS availability notice for information.
All right, they're still having that problem with their printer, whatever comes out there. Man, that looks it's the same issue. It all comes out scrunched up in some areas and spaced out in others. That's kind
It's
of
like a
odd.
ransom note.
A bad one.
It does, yeah.
Bad ransom note.
Yeah.
We have your friend.
Yeah. They cut and pasted letters out of the newspaper to make it work. Okay, any questions on this one? I have one question, and I guess maybe for our members that could on the board to take it back. I don't understand why they've got the 2017, 18, and 19 stats, but don't have the 2020 stats showing. They're talking about there's a decrease in people coming, but we have no idea if there is or not. They're just making a general comment. It'd be nice to have the up-to-date stats for 2020 included on that table. Any other comments, questions on it? Seems like they've been saying, oh, go ahead.
So Debbie, are you going to take it back? Are you going to let them know, or do you want me to?
You go ahead.
Okay.
They seem to be keeping still pretty busy by phone, which is good, and I'm sure people need them probably more than ever now, trying to navigate some of those federal and provincial program applications and getting them through there. I would sure that's going to be a challenge. Okay, I don't see any other questions on this. So we have a motion to receive for information. All those in favor? All right, that motion passes also. Moving on to item 14.2, letter from Big Lakes County. Get a motion here. Councillor Gilroy.
As we get this started, the council received a letter from Big Lakes County regarding the capital funding grant for information.
Thank you. All right, we've had a little bit of discussion on this already. Anything that you want to add to this, Brian?
No, just basically that I don't believe the funding from last year, 2019, is lost yet. I think if council make a strong ploy that we require that funding to finish the upgrades to our water treatment plant, that they'll look favorable at us. I think it was around $430,000 there. So they wanted receipts, as Councillor Gilroy said, that on projects completed, but it's not completed yet. So, and it was in the works in 2019. So, what should be done? Vern said probably end of June, something like that. So,
okay, thank you.
But it'll be discussed at the intermunicipal also.
Councillor Rose had her hand up and then down again. No?
No.
I do.
Okay, Councillor Stenhouse and then Councillor Gilroy.
So my question was, but being that it's going back, how will this affect us if they do pull our 19 funding, our 2019 funding? How is this going to really affect our budget again?
We'll probably lower the reserves to pay that project off by $430,000.
Was your question about the exist for the 400,000 or the other amount for 2020 or both?
Well, well, actually for both. I'm very disappointed in this, but yeah, probably for both. How is it going to affect us?
In a nutshell, I can probably answer that. Number one, we've been using that for capital projects. So that means that our capital projects, we either have to use our reserve funding or we have to cut back on the number of capital projects that we do. So that's what's going to hit us on. The operating budget is a separate budget, so that's not going to affect us in operating, but it is going to impact our capital projects. What we can get done and how we pay for those projects will certainly be impacted severely.
But we've already accepted our budgets already, and now they're pulling back on the money.
The capital is always subject to funding though. And if they pull the money back, then we just got to pick the projects that we can do on our own.
Okay.
Councillor Gilroy?
Knowing that we receive a certain number of grants, and I don't know if this is part of the grants we've already received, but I do remember we occasionally we're given grants on the condition that we have support from the county, and that they receive grants because they have support from the town, financial support. Are any of these grants that we have as a nest egg right now, are any of them contingent upon funding from the county matching it? Because I know we've done a number of projects where they paid a third, we paid a third, and everybody else, like when we did the promotion for the broadband, remember we had to put money aside like that. Are any of those projects, first of all, affected by withdrawal of any funds? Because that would be it. And secondly, as just to assure Councillor Senthouse, that was knowing that we probably would not have got this, that was one of the reasons we made the motion for the administration to check out other alternative ways to get the funding to meet the needs of what the priorities of the town was for 2020. So those are the two things I want to remind us of. And if Mr. Martinson can answer the first one about whether any of them are contingent, or how are they going to move forward if they're not giving us money now? Are they going to change their mind when they want money from us for projects they want this year, grant funding or proposals and that?
Their grant funding projects are already in place. So I believe that they've already paid the government whatever they did. They needed a letter from us for the emergency management one, and that one I think was for 200 and some thousand odd dollars. So that's already in place.
But did we offer that money to match it? Like, are we on the hook for money that they're taking away from us, but we're still on the hook for financing their projects? I'm just trying to figure out how this works.
I think the only one that we're on the hook for would have been the broadband, where we're going to take monies out of what they were giving us to pay for that project.
Councillor Danaka?
Does anybody know what their final budget was in terms of what they're giving to recreation in the library?
I had asked their treasurer that question, and they haven't reduced the original numbers.
I believe Chris Clegg if he's there, has an idea because he wrote it in his newspaper this week.
They still want to look at meeting again with the budget review committees. That was a proposal that they had, but I don't know. I didn't get a chance to sit in with any of the other ones, the library or the fire department. I was only on the recreation one, and Councillor Gilroy and Councillor Long sat in on them ones, and we had reduced the budget, and it was approved through the recreation committee, which Councillor Courtley and Councillor Rose sat on. So I don't know. Like I said, the shoe seems to be on the other foot right now with the budget process.
Okay, any other questions on this? Or are we ready to vote? I don't see any other questions, so we have a motion to receive the letter from Big Lakes County for information. All those in favor? All right, that motion passes. We are moving on. We might as well push through because we're just about done. And we have our councillor reports. We'll start with Councillor Danaka.
I've had no meetings other than the council ones, but I do have an update from Darlene at the museum. She has been working diligently researching provincial and federal COVID funding available for museums, historical societies, cultural organizations, nonprofits. It's not been an easy process to find out which ones they do qualify for. She referenced talking to Mayor Panasic regarding what the museum needs to open in terms of hand sanitizers, sanitized wipes, etc. She was in contact with the COVID response contact line. Then she was directed to the health authority. Then she was directed to Alberta BizConnect to find out where to get supplies for businesses, etc. The PPE, and basically it seems like that's been a runaround in terms of who to contact. So she's made some calls to some of her suppliers, hoping they'll be able to ship what they need. Basically, if they don't have everything that they need by the 15th, they won't be open till the 19th. Since the closure of the museum, both the two staff members, Darlene and Lauren, have reduced their work hours and made use of their holidays, but also they've been taking the opportunity to complete some of the in-depth work on the archives. They've also been sharing different photos that they found. The last batch was of the flooding that happened in, I can't remember what year. And then, of course, now with the rodeo being canceled, they've been sharing some of their photos and newspaper advertisements that were showcasing the rodeo. As well, before COVID-19, they were doing renovations to the gift shop, and they had put in about 2 years working on the Truth and Reconciliation exhibit that they were hoping to open. With the Truth and Reconciliation exhibit, they had the elders from the different reserves and settlements come and go through it and critique it and give their opinions on what could be made better. Hopefully, once COVID calms down or the restrictions change, they will be having an open house on that, as well as the local gift shop. And they're still working on their new school programs that they were developing with the teachers before COVID happened, and they were, again, once restrictions will be released, not sure when school will be back in session, they will have an open house for the teachers to demonstrate what resources they can acquire or access through the museum. And basically, going forward, they're looking at reducing their operational costs by job sharing, holiday entitlement, and accessing any COVID grants that are available to them. So that's my update from the museum. That's all I have. I move my verbal report for information.
Any questions? I see our CAO has one or comment.
Donna had reached out to me to see if we had any personal protective equipment and whatever, and she will be receiving some of them. She has to make arrangements with Mike Denty, and he's going to take her some sanitizer, cleaner. So they probably will be open on the 14th.
All right, great. Well, I think they were looking at opening on the 19th, Brian, right after the long weekend, not on the 14th. That's what Darlene had told me, and that's what I announced in the video, was not the 14th, but the 19th. Yeah, 19th, that, on the Tuesday, I think that's the 19th. Okay, no other questions for Councillor Danaka. She moved her report for information. All those in favor? All right, that passes. Moving on then to Councillor Gilroy.
Okay, before I did have my hand up just before Councillor Danak did her report. I did have a question that our CAO had talked about. Should we have made a motion to encourage or to let Big Lakes County know that we need the 2019 money to finish off projects? Because that was the impression I received from our CAO, that we should have made a motion to send a letter to that effect. Does the CAO still want that, and are we allowed to do that before we end the meeting?
I think we'll wait till the intermunicipal
Okay.
and then come from there.
I just wasn't sure if you wanted it done.
No.
Actually, there's a couple things here on my report. One, I want to encourage all the parents. They will be receiving an email survey from the High Prairie School Division that actually is from the Ministry of Education for the province on options for the schooling in the fall of 2020. And it's very important that anybody who hears this recording talks to as many parents as possible to get this in. It's time sensitive, and the options are very important for the direction of our children, as well as other things for our school division. So I just want to make sure that we listed that. I know it's not directly under my portfolio, but it's an extremely important thing for our parents to hear. And if they do not have full access to internet, make sure that they get that information in, because it's very important. Secondly, I did have a meeting today, and so I didn't have time to write it up, with the High Prairie Aboriginal Interagency. Some good news. Though their powwow has been postponed this year, they have chosen the date, and I hope they're going to talk to you soon, Brian Martinson. But it's going to be the first Saturday in May in 2021. I forget the date, but it's already on their website. I think it may be I'm not going to go for it, but it's very important that we see that they're going to come back. It's just a blip, so we will have them as one of our tenants for that weekend, which is awesome. As well, we had people responding on our committee from different areas. One was the library, and they're doing a lot of stuff on digital, especially Overdrive and ebooks. And they mentioned the fact that we can go on the Peace Library System.ab.ca and get a library card. So that will, we can do that. Plus they also have an audiobook system as well, audiobook.sync.com, where parents or adults can have 2 free ebooks to read online every week. So they wanted to pass that on to the town. And regarding the food bank, which we've been talking about for some time, I got an update on that as well. The food bank, because of COVID restrictions, they are actually booking appointments. And so, they're allowed a family at a time there. You have to come when you book your appointment, and it's 780-523-5777, and Kim will allow you to make those appointments so that they can meet the needs. And yes, there has been a slight increase in the numbers, but it's important that you phone ahead if you need to get this. So that's my Aboriginal interagency one, as well as all the rest of the things that we've done. And yes, I went over, Judy Stenhouse, I went over my 5 minutes. Okay, I know you're smiling about it, and I was waiting for the beeper there, but I will then move my verbal, and I mean verbal, report for information.
Okay, any questions for him? He moved his verbose verbal report for information. All those in favor?
I didn't know there was a go faster button. Wow,
That's-
good to know.
yeah. All right, Councillor Long is not here, so over to me. Not a lot to report on other than I did do a couple other videos, one on our COVID relief grant that we did and posted, and then one on the relaunch, and talked about the museum and the campground being reopened. And we didn't actually mention about the campground, but we can just verify that that'll probably still, is that opening up on the 14th?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, we did that ones, and other than that, there's nothing else to report. I move my report for information. All those in favor? Oh, I have a question before we vote. Sorry, I should have. It came in a little late. Go ahead, Donna.
My question, well, I guess it's not a question, it's an observation. The last video that you had done, the sound was horrible. It was choppy. You could hardly hear it. I don't know why. I don't know if you were someplace different when you did it, but that last video was really hard to hear. And I don't know if it was just me or if it was other people. I see Judy nodding her head saying it was terrible.
Yeah. It was tough. It was tough to hear.
Yeah, okay. And my other question is, with the campground opening, I'm assuming the restrictions are like the showers and the bathrooms are closed, et cetera, playgrounds off limits. How are you limiting distance between each campground or each campsite?
When they book in, we're booking every second campsite.
And with regards to your question, I think everything was the same. Nancy was back at the helm, and maybe she did something at her end, but from my end, I did the same stuff that I usually do, just talk. So, but we'll have to make sure that we check the sound quality before we post it. Because yeah, I didn't know that it didn't come in clear till after. Okay, again, we'll do the vote. I moved my report for information. All those in favor? All right, that passes. Councillor Courtley.
No report.
All right, Councillor Rose.
No report, but I will just ask if everybody had an opportunity to take a look. I actually just posted it, but I can still make an edit on the new Facebook post on the council page, just sort of introducing the fact that we're relaunching businesses, or we're opening up some doors. If anybody had any suggestions on that, I did get a looks good from Brian, but I didn't get any comments from anybody else. So if you guys wanted to take a look at that, because it really just says we're opening up. So, you know, we're, I think it just basically gives them the, a link to that Alberta Biz website that Donna, that you had referenced already, that the museum is using, because I think that there's lots of people, and when you watch on the discussion groups, that are concerned. I think there's lots of people that are happy to see that business is starting to resume as normal, but there's some people that are very fearful. So I think it would be it's wise to sort of have these announcements so people sort of know that there's a protocol that's being in place. So anyway, any feedback that anybody has, just forward it on to me, and I can make any edits.
Councillor Gilroy.
When you said Brian, that was mine, wasn't it? That I gave you a feedback on that, Debbie? Because I was
Was it
wondering
you?
if I actually gave you a feedback. Yes. And I was said
Oh
that it
my
was, I said it was good, but I was
goodness,
saying that
I
I
missed
thought
it.
it should be in conjunction with a new video by the mayor that would say,
I did see that.
welcome
Yeah.
back to the business is reopening. Thank you to those who have been faithfully opened, and also to encourage our people of our town to help jumpstart the economy by buying locally. So that was mine. Just so you know, I want to make sure, just like Arlen
Right.
agreed
There was
with me
two.
once, I agreed with you today.
There was two Brians.
Once.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Okay.
But otherwise, I moved my verbal report for information.
Yeah. Do we have any idea? Just I'm going to throw it out there. How many?
I like Judy's little
businesses-
emoji.
How many are going to reopen? I'm just curious because I know I was talking with the Northern Lights and they're not reopening. They're going to wait for a couple of weeks and see what happens. So I'm just wondering if anybody's heard from any other
The coffee shop's
businesses.
open.
They are? Okay.
Cynthia's coffee shop's open. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you for sure.
Okay. I
But
wasn't
know there was
sure if
coffees
there
coming out of there. But unfortunately, we're losing some, right? There's ones that are just never going to open again. And
That's all over the
So,
country.
it'll be interesting to see how things go down in the next couple of weeks. I know one of the hairdressers is opening on the 14th, Dawn, but I don't know. I don't even know what that hairdressing shop is called. She's in Jody's building over there across from the Source. Or your building, Brian. Panasic.
Okay. You moved your report for information. All those in favor? All right, that passes. Councillor Stenhouse. No report. I see her shaking her head. That's no report. That concludes our agenda, so meeting is adjourned.
I got it.
And I'll give Brian back control here, right?